Hello mentors, welcome back. To this week we're going to look at lesson 4, board game. So the first thing I'm going to do is look through the materials. So if you can locate your bag, first thing you'll see is the board game boards. Then you have all the game pieces. You should have a blue group game pieces, yellow group game pieces. You should also have Konane game pieces. You should also have dry erase pens that should be included from another lesson, most likely, either Connect 4 or maybe Panayole. You have a binder full of worksheets, which I'll go over in a little bit. And then you should also have is worksheets. You will have your board game card notes as well as movement notes. You will have your blue group worksheets. Linear equations and inequalities. You'll have your yellow group worksheet, compound inequalities. And last, you'll have a worksheet, probability, and game board. So this lesson can be broken up into 8 steps. The first step is to provide a cultural background. The background is going to be about the Konane board game and a brief history of Konane. And so we're going to make a connection between our board game that they'll be playing later on and the Hawaiian culture and through Konane and how every culture kind of has their own board game. So in step 1, you use the PowerPoints to give a brief introduction and history about Konane and also how to play the game. And then in step 2, they'll actually get to play the game. They'll play the game using their Konane boards as well as the game pieces. The game pieces, they're usually played with stones or shells, but we're going to use beads. So they'll be either playing as with the white beads or black beads, depending on on the beginning of the game and whichever one they chose. Then next, after they play that game for about 10 to 15 minutes, you will go into step 3 and 4, which is the pretest. So in step 3, you'll give them the pretest, and in step 4, you'll break them up into either blue group or yellow group, depending upon their scores from the pretest in step 3. Step 5, you'll explain the worksheets. So blue group and yellow group both have their own worksheets. Blue group, they have the worksheets, linear equations, and inequalities. You'll show step 1, problem 1 in part A, and you'll show them how to solve it. And then you let them try to solve the rest on their own. Facilitate as needed. And after you show them, go through problem 1, problem 2 is to show how linear equations are actually relevant to the real world and how you would be used. The yellow worksheet for yellow group is similarly in the same setup, where problem 1 is to show how to solve compound inequalities, and then step 2 would be showing how it connects to the real world and how they would apply compound inequalities. Next, they'll also need to know is about inequalities for blue group, because they'll need to know where their value lies so that they can figure out their movements for the game. So step 5 is kind of all setting up to give them the math concepts that they need to actually play the game. Now in step 6, you'll explain the actual game, and what you'll need is to give them their boards, as well as each group has their own type of worksheet. Blue group has their blue worksheet, solving linear equations, and on the back there's also solving linear equations 2, which I'll go over that in a little bit. Yellow group also has their own worksheet, solving compound inequalities. Now let's look at the game pieces. In each group, they'll have their own set. So blue group, they'll have their own game pieces, as well as you'll find some dice and these color dots. So these are their actual game pieces. These are going to be their characters, which they'll use on the board. And then these dice, if you notice, each color matches with the worksheet. So you'll see here you have a white square, a blue square, and a red square. And these line up here. So you have X and X. This square represents would go here. This would go there. And the red would similarly go at the end. And how this would work, if I roll the dice, then we can see that it should be X times 5 equals 6. And they would put that here. So X times 5 equals 6. And then they'll solve for X. The other things that they have is the game cards. So these game cards line up here. there should be a start and finish card, which can go there. And then what you'll do is you can take them through what each card means. And this is where your Beam game card notes will come in handy. So you can show them like Double Trouble. Double Trouble, it also is written on the cards what happens. So if they land on this card, then they double their answer for X in the next turn. And there's many different ones starting all over again. If they land on this card, then they have to go back to the beginning. And what they'll do is they'll shuffle these cards face down, and they'll just line them up in each square. You see it says place a game card here, so that's what they'll do. They'll place one game card in each location. And this now sets up their board. So they'll roll a dice, solve the equation, and then whatever their X value is, say they got X and it was maybe 6. Then if X was 6, you see that they're between 6 is between 5 and 10, and so they get to move 2 spaces. So they'll move 1, 2. And in this case, if they land on this square, they got a free space, so they get a much needed brain break, which means there's nothing that they have to do. For instance, if they land here, Arg, then it says that you're a pirate now, and you must play with one hand covering your eyes. So what they would have to do is for the next 2 turns is they would have to sit there and cover one eye like so. Yep. And similarly, even if they had Superstar, if they land on Superstar, it means they have to strike a pose. So maybe they'd be like, so every time someone says their name, so they're like, oh, Jarek, then you have to give your pose. And that's how the game is played. Yellow group is similarly the same. They would have their worksheets. And their dice also match up to the colors. So they have a purple dice, they have a green, a red, a white, a blue, and a red. And these numbers line up to here. So if they rolled up 1, then the 1 goes here, then you have their symbols. Then the green goes next, then you have X, then you have your symbols, so on and so forth. One thing to know with each worksheet is that the symbols and things may change. So if you notice here, this says a less than symbol, but here it's a greater than symbol. Similarly for blue group, there's different things, like there may be a negative symbol, so then their answer will be a negative number here. And that's pretty much all the components to the board game. So after that, you'll have them play this board game for about 40 minutes or as much as time allows. So that'll be step 7 to be playing the game. And then after they play the game, you'll take them through step 8, which is to go over the probability worksheet. Now this worksheet is introducing the basics of probability. So talking about sample space and how to figure out probability. And what you're going to do is look at the probability of this board game. And they'll figure out like what's the probability of rolling different things. Yeah, so you just help them, take them through the worksheet. And after that, you just do your wrap up. And that's it. So good luck. Have fun. And we'll see you next time.